Hey, my people, welcome back to another episode on Like It Is with Melissa. And it's your girl, Melissa Freeman. And today I'm going to title this episode, Let's Talk About It. So I know some of you are all like, let's talk about it. Like, isn't that the purpose of a podcast? That we just hear a lot of talking? Like, what do you mean, let's talk about it? Let's talk about it. Okay. There are so many couples out there, so many relationships out there where people are lost for words. They don't know what to talk about. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about conversations and why conversations don't continue and why communication doesn't happen in relationships and marriages. Let's talk about it. The it is conversations. Now, I know you have seen this before where maybe you go out to eat by yourself or maybe you go out to eat with your friends and you look upon a couple that looks fairly young enough to say maybe they're not married yet, that they just met. And it looks like they have a lot to talk about. There is so much to talk about. And of course there is, because it's new, it's fresh. They're getting to know each other, right? But then you look at a couple that looks older. You can tell that they're married. You probably can see the ring on their fingers, and they have less to talk about. There are times that you see them, they're staring into space or maybe just eating and enjoying each other's company. And unfortunately, that is the norm. If you look around, pay attention next time you go out. Look around and pay attention. That's what it looks like. And it looks like that for a reason, several reasons. They're not all negative, right? Some of them are positive. Some of them are just like, they've been spending time all week. And so that's their moment to be like, we just need some kind of like me time. Like it's both. Like we want to be together, but we don't really want to talk. We don't want to stress our brains. We just want to enjoy each other's quietness, enjoy each other's space, and eat a good meal. That's not a bad thing. And so often it is looked on as a negative, but it's not a negative. Sometimes it's as simple as we've been together forever. Listen, we had a long day. Neither one of us feel like talking. And that's okay. And that's how our relationship works. Because at night, during our pillow talk, we're going to talk a whole lot. But when we're sitting and we're tired, we just want to enjoy a good meal. Listen, that's called getting older. We don't got to yap our lips the whole time. We don't need to do that, right? So it's not all negative. But what I do want to talk about today is why in relationships, in marriages, why it gets to that point, why there is less conversation. Okay, let's get to it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I today am simply going to go over a list of things that will keep a conversation going. I like to call it my conversation keeper list. That's what I like to call it, because it is a list of things that if you start to talk about these things, it will keep a conversation going. So let's get to it. The first one is when you start talking about hobbies. When you start talking about each other's hobbies, you can go on and on and on because it is a hobby. It is something dear to your heart. It is something that you are working on, that you're passionate about, that you want to talk about, that brings you joy. And so when you talk about each other's hobbies, the conversation is a keeper. It keeps going and it keeps going. And not just in one person talking, but the other person also like feeding off of that energy, because then maybe that conversation will end up being a motivator for the other one who maybe does not have any hobbies. Maybe the other spouse doesn't have hobbies and they're seeing the joy and they're seeing your eyes light up and they're like, I want that. And so maybe the conversation ends up being where the spouse starts to think about what they want to do and bounce ideas off of you. And again, the conversation keeps on going. And no matter how long you have known someone, if you have hobbies in common, it just supports so many topics, right? And when I say hobbies, it doesn't mean that you have to have the same exact hobby, just something that you love and your spouse love. But if you have something where it kind of goes in the same lane, it's also helpful because then you can support each other in the hobby that you've chosen. Vacations. Oh my goodness. Vacations is a great source of conversation. And the reason is you get to ponder, reminisce, laugh, talk about things that has happened when you were on vacation. And I just feel like certain things just never get old. Like you can talk about vacations over and over and over again and still laugh at the same thing over and over and over again because that's how funny it was. And so vacations is always a hot topic, which is why I always tell people, and I tell myself, go on vacation, go away. It's going to bring that extra dose of joy in your marriage where you have something to talk about and reminisce about, and you create new memories on vacation. So what better way or what more to talk about than the memories that you've created with the family or with you and your significant other? What better conversation than that, right? And if you're anything like me, if things were funny, they just never stop being funny because that's how funny it was. The conversation will keep on going because then you'll start talking about future vacations. Where else would you like to go? What other countries would you like to explore? What else do you want to learn? This world is so big, right? And the conversation keeps going and going and going. So vacations is always a plus. But the only way to talk about vacations is if you are actually going on vacations with your spouse. So what do you need to do? You need to go on vacations. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and just go on the internet right now, find a vacation and book it, and go on vacation with your family or your spouse. Go ahead. Just do it. It will add conversation in your relationship. Now, the next one is a little boring, but it does kind of, I would say, start the fire of a conversation. And it's simply just, how was your day? Like, how was your day? You don't know what you're going to get from that. Now, I will tell you, for me, if my husband asks me how was my day, all he's going to get is it was really busy, or it was stressful, or it was a lot. Like, that's all he's going to get. But that's because I don't like to talk about work. When I come home, I don't like to talk about work. I would like to unplug and not think about it. But I do appreciate that question, like, how was your day? But it's the opposite for my husband. Like, if I say to him, how was your day? He will tell me everything that happened that day. Everything, details, all of it. And so for him, I think it supports him in some way to get all of that out. And so just keep that in mind, that maybe you're like me and you're like, I don't like to talk about how my day was at work. But if your spouse does, ask the question, hear what they got to say. And maybe it's not a conversation keeper for your relationship, but it is a conversation to have so that you are in the loop of what's happening at work with your spouse. And in that, hopefully you'll find out if they are feeling stressed out a little bit, overwhelmed, don't like some things that are happening, or if there's so many joys or wins that's happening, that they are coming home with great energy. It just gives you more information that is so important to have when you are in a relationship. You need to know kind of what's happening at work, even though I don't like talking about it, y'all. Every once in a while I'll come out and I'll be like, this happened, because I'm like, oh, he needs to know this, because he needs to know why I'm feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed out or tired, right? But then Sometimes I don't feel like talking about it. So, but I think it is important to gauge where people are when it comes to where they are for more than half the day, which is work. The other good thing is if you find out they're stressed or they're going through something, listen, y'all need to check out my other episode where I talked about supportive spouses, because that is an opportunity for you to ask some of those questions like, how can I help? Or how can I support you? Or how can I make you feel better if they are stressed out or going through something at work? So listen, check out that episode. Listen, don't skip episodes. You're going to miss too many nuggets, y'all. So make sure you go to that one too, supportive spouses. But it's an opportunity to ask some of those questions, which will be very helpful in keeping that conversation and supporting your spouse. Oftentimes, photo albums, this is just not what we have in our homes anymore because we have all this technology, our phones, and it's just ridiculous. But I am still a person who still likes photo albums. Yes, I am. And I think that they do very well when you're trying to have conversations, like literally just picking up a photo album and flipping through it and looking at some of the pictures. It will bring up like other memories, other emotions you had, things that happened that day. And yeah, it's a conversation keeper, because sometimes you're like, it'll be the smallest thing. You'll be like, yeah, remember that day I just couldn't find my chapstick. I just couldn't find my chapstick. In this picture, I just couldn't find my chapstick. Remember, it took me 10 minutes to find it before we could take the picture. Like small little stuff that will keep a conversation. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be important or significant, but it's just something to talk about. And it does keep you connected, because that's what communication does. Y'all know I got to go with my spiritual. When we say we are disconnected from God and we say that we feel like there is a lack of communication with the Lord, which is our prayer life, is because we are not communicating. We are not praying. Praying brings that connection with God. You cannot go through this life, say you are saved, stay connected to God and not pray. It's just not going to work. And so just like in our spiritual walk, same way with our natural walk, you got to be having these conversations. You got to be talking to your spouse in order for it to work. Now, that being said, I'm not saying I'm perfect. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But those who know me know I have my moments where I'm like, I just don't feel like talking because that's how upset I am. Or I just don't feel like talking because I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and I just don't. But I still know the right thing is to talk, is to communicate. And so there are times where I will make myself or force myself to talk and have conversations because I know it's healthy and it needs to happen. So that being said, like, understand, you have to keep conversations going. I know for me too, photo albums is not just like thinking of memories, but sometime in those photo albums, you'll see someone has passed away that was dear to your heart. And so even like allowing those emotions to come out and just being vulnerable with that, so that your spouse can see you in a different light, or they can understand that certain things still affect you and hurt you and you're still grieving over certain things. I think that's helpful. I do. And I think it's helpful for both parties, not just the spouse who is going to support you, but the one who's looking at the pictures and saying, wow, I miss my brother, or I miss my sister, or I miss my mom, or I miss my dad, while you're looking at these pictures. Because then what you're doing is bringing another layer of connection in your relationship, because you're talking about something that's really close to your heart and that you're still going through. And so photos will do that. So don't get too stuck on just taking pictures on your phone and not printing them out and creating a nice old school, old fashioned photo album. Life goals and values is always one. Talking about your life goals, your values, things you want to do, things you're doing right now that you're hoping will manifest and become bigger. I mean, it is so important to talk about life goals, like what you want out of life, what kind of legacy you're going to leave when you pass away. Like, it's so important. And I think that that's the kind of conversation that can go on and on and on, because if you're anything like people in my circle, you're always thinking about what's next or what goal you want to reach or the values that you have in that goal that literally represents you, that you want to leave back when it's your time to go. And so it's important to think about that and to have a conversation about that. And if you have a spouse who's not thinking about that, you can ask those questions. Like, what are your goals? What are your lifelong goals that you have or you want to start that you haven't started? And how can I support you in it? Like, ask those questions. Now, I know for some of you all are like, okay, whatever. Let's talk about it. Me and my spouse talk all the time. And yeah, that could be great. Maybe y'all do talk all the time. But are you talking about things that your spouse wants to talk about? Ask yourself that question. Because sometimes people are having conversations and it's not even what they want to talk about. They're just engaging in the conversation because you want to talk about it, which is okay sometime, but it can't be all the time. Because what eventually happens is they just don't really want to talk and they will tap out. So you want to make sure that whatever you are talking about is just as interesting to you as it is to your spouse. I'm going to say that again. You want to make sure you're talking about something that's just as interesting to you as it is to your spouse. Don't let the conversation be one way. Don't let the conversation be all about you and you and you, but share the floor. Allow space and room to talk about what you both enjoy doing so that conversation is not just filling your cup, but it's filling your spouse's cup. So in so many words, what am I saying? Don't be selfish. Do not be selfish. It is so unhealthy to be selfish and not think about how your spouse is feeling when you are having conversation. Now, if you've listened to other episodes from me, you would know that I also believe that conversations is part of intimacy. Conversations supports every area of your marriage. Yes, it does. So if you're not taking advantage of this opportunity to be intimate in conversation, and you want to be the taker and never the giver in this intimacy of conversation, you are lacking knowledge. You want to take some time to take that opportunity and say, I want us both to feel fulfilled having this conversation. I want us both to walk away saying that conversation made us feel good. I want us both to walk away saying, if you're married, that this conversation is going to lead to us having other intimacy opportunities today, right? So don't take this episode lightly. Take it all in. Grab every nugget I'm giving. And again and again and again, I will say that I am on this journey just like you're on this journey, okay? So what I'm giving you, I'm also sometimes working on, or I am like literally smack in the middle of it, or I am at a better place in it. And that's why I can give you extra information. But I think it's so important to be vulnerable on my podcast, because if I sit and act like I just know everything, like that's not true. I don't know everything. But what I know that I know is what I know that I know. And so what I know that I know, I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to share it, and I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to hope and pray that it enhances your relationship, your marriage, all of that good stuff. All right? Life is all about friendships. It's all about relationships and how healthy they are. That makes your life successful. I'm telling you, like, some people build off of money and they say that's what makes their life successful. But you know how many people I know, and let's just think about famous people that have so much money and people think that they are successful, but their life was lonely and miserable. And what I'm saying to you is that's not what I want for you. I want you to be happy. And what better way to bring happiness than to have great relationships? All right, listen, my time is up, y'all. My time is up. I got to go. All right, I'm going to go celebrate my brother's birthday today. He just turned 40. So I got to get off, but I wanted to come on and say a little something to y'all because y'all's my people. So listen, don't forget to go to my website, www.likeItiswithmelissa.com. Go ahead, www.likeItiswithmelissa.com. Check out everything on there. My book, What's Butterflies Got to Do With It. Go ahead and check out my prayer box and order that. Go ahead and join all my social medias and be a part of every family. And don't miss out on the extra nuggets, fun, and laughter. All right? So I'm out. I hope you have a blessed day and you'll hear from me soon.